A very good afternoon. You're watching the Midday News on Rajya Sabha television. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor with you, and these are the headlines. BJP releases first list of 177 candidates for Madhya Pradesh Assembly elections. Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan to fight from Budni. 28 candidates announced for Telangana and 24 for Mizoram polls. Last date of filing of nominations for the second phase of Chhattisgarh polls today. Vice President Venkaiah Naidu to interact with businessmen and investors from India and Botswana at the CEO Roundtable in a short while from now. Appeals to Indian community in Botswana to contributing to exciting growth story unfolding in India. To leave for Zimbabwe on the second leg of Africa visit. Support and outreach for micro, small and medium enterprises. Prime Minister Modi to launch a 100-day program to cover 100 districts throughout the country. Several announcements on credit, access to market, among others, to be made. Supreme Court refuses to entertain petition challenging ordinance on triple talaq. Bench led by Chief Justice of India says ordinance passed 2 months ago and has life of 6 months. Adds it does not find it necessary to interfere. An army stages a flag march in Kishtwar in Jammu and Kashmir where curfew has been imposed following killing of senior BJP leader and his brother on Thursday night. Officials say situation tense but under control. Unidentified terrorists killed in encounter in Kupwara district. The top story this afternoon, Vice President Venkaiah Naidu will participate in IndiaBotswana CEO Roundtable during his ongoing visit to Botswana. He will interact with the businessmen and investors of both the nations. After this, he will visit the Diamond Trading Company. The Vice President is scheduled to call on the President of Botswana. Later, he will emplane for Zimbabwe's capital Harare on the second leg of his three-nation Africa visit. In Zimbabwe, he will address the Indian community at a reception hosted by the Ambassador of India to Zimbabwe. The high-level visit to Zimbabwe is taking place after a gap of 21 years. An earlier Vice President Venkaiah Naidu held bilateral talks with his Botswanian counterpart on Thursday. Both the leaders acknowledged the historical and warm relations between the two countries and held extensive discussions on bilateral, multilateral and issues of mutual interest. The Botswana Vice President also said that his country is keen to join India's solar alliance to fulfill energy needs. Both the leaders also referred to the close defence cooperation between the two countries. The Vice President conveyed India's willingness to bear most of the expenditure, including salaries, in order to continue support to Botswana's defence forces. Botswana appreciated the assistance being given by India in capacity building, particularly under the Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation Programme. Both the sides also strongly condemned terrorism in all its forms and manifestations as a global menace. An MOU between both the governments of India and Botswana for waiving a visa for diplomatic passport holders was also signed.
The President referred to the stable democratic environment which Botswana provides and appreciated its important role in the context of the South African Development Community, the SADC. His Excellency, the Vice President of Botswana, Slumber Sogwane, warmly recalled India's contribution to the freedom struggle of many southern African nations, including Botswana. Both the leaders referred to the close defense cooperation between the two countries, particularly between 1978 till 2012, when Indian Army and Air Force training teams were stationed in Botswana. They agreed to enhance cooperation in defense and security. Botswana appreciated the assistance given by India in capacity building, particularly under ITEC. Botswana also announced their decision to join the International Solar Alliance. This is a very significant development and was welcomed by our side. We also expressed our happiness over Botswana's continuous support in the multilateral fora, reflecting the enduring spirit of friendship between the two countries.
And Vice President Venkaiah Naidu also interacted with the Indian community in Botswana on Thursday, and terming the Indian diaspora as India's cultural ambassadors. Venkaiah Naidu appreciated the aspirations and desires of the Indians living there for exuding vibrancy and dynamism. He praised the Indian diaspora for contributing to the economy of Botswana and also for integrating into its pluralistic, free and democratic society. The Vice President also said that India and Botswana trade has steadily improved over the last few years, and it registered a significant growth of 26%, bringing it to $1.175 billion.
I understand and appreciate the aspirations and desires of the Indian community, which exudes vibrancy and dynamism. The Indian diaspora in Botswana has not only well integrated into its pluralistic, free and democratic society, but also have immensely contributed to the economy of Botswana. I know that most of you are engaged in education, medicine, accounting, retail and manufacturing sectors and have been actively contributing to create local employment. By sheer perseverance, determination and adaptation, you have carved a niche and respect for yourselves and have endured both to Botswana and India alike. Your support to Government of Botswana's socio-economic welfare and charity programs, as well as active and enthusiastic involvement in the events of national importance, has been greatly acknowledged and appreciated by both the people of Botswana and India.
On to the other top story this afternoon. Prime Minister Modi will launch an MSME support and outreach program today. The outreach program will run for 100 days, covering 100 districts throughout the country, and various announcements and deliverables focused on access to credit, access to market, hand-holding and facilitation support measures for the MSME sector are likely to be announced on this occasion. Various central ministries are likely to visit these districts in order to apprise the entrepreneurs about various facilities being extended to the MSME sector by the government and financial institutions, and to come forward and make best use of these facilities, including access to credit and market. And US President Donald Trump has spoken to Prime Minister Narendra Modi and discussed trade issues between the two countries. Now, this was informed by White House Chief Economic Advisor Larry Kudlow. Kudlow said that India and US are in talks, adding that India is a highly valued ally. However, he did not specify when did the telephonic conversation take place or the details thereof. And earlier on Saturday, Commerce and Industry Minister Suresh Prabhu had also said that India and US have exchanged offers for a possible trade deal with a view to resolving issues related to bilateral commerce. India, remember, is pressing for exemption from high duty imposed by the US on certain steel and aluminium products, resumption of export benefits to certain domestic goods under the Generalized System of Preferences or the GSP, as well as a greater market access for its products from sectors including agriculture, automobile, auto components and engineering. And US President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping on Thursday also held a telephone conversation speaking of bilateral trade and the Korean Peninsula issue. The two leaders also agreed to meet bilaterally during the upcoming G20 summit in Argentina. The two leaders expressed optimism about resolving their bitter trade disputes ahead of the high-stakes meeting. In a tweet, the US President said that he had a long and very good conversation with the Chinese leader with a heavy emphasis on trade. He added that those discussions are moving ahead nicely ahead of the planned face-to-face meeting at the G20 summit in Argentina. Now, Xi said that he hopes that both the countries will promote a stable, healthy development of bilateral ties in accordance with the important consensus reached between him and Donald Trump. Commercial relations, remember, between the US and China have soured sharply in recent months after the US imposed tariffs on about half of Chinese imports, and that also prompted China to respond with retaliatory levies, raising the prospect of a protracted trade war. Meanwhile, the United States has agreed to grant India a waiver from sanctions imposed on Iran. Media reports say that the move will allow Indian oil companies to continue to import about 1.25 million tons oil a month till March from Tehran. An official announcement is reportedly expected over the next few days. The reports add that the US plans to reimpose oil-related sanctions on Iran on 4th of November in order to pressurize it to renegotiate a new nuclear deal. The US is also insisting that it wants all the countries to reduce oil imports from Iran to zero gradually, but said that it was open to country-specific waivers. Now, India has agreed to cut its imports from Iran by a third. India imported about 22 million tons of crude oil from Iran in 2017-18, while it planned to raise about 30 million tons in 2018-19. However, as a condition of waiver, Indian oil firms can import 1.25 million tons a month up to March 2019, which is the same that they had ordered for October and November.
As far as the US is concerned, they are well aware about our expectations of the requirement which we have for oil domestically, and which is very critical for sustaining our economic growth. As I mentioned last time, we have taken note of the US position, which was conveyed by Secretary Pompeo, that the intention of imposing sanction on Iran is not to hurt India. We do want to engage, we will continue to engage with the US and other stakeholders to ensure that our energy security is not compromised, and also that our national interests are protected.
On the election-related news now, the BJP has released its list of candidates for the forthcoming elections to Madhya Pradesh, Telangana and Mizoram. The party has released its list of 177 candidates for Madhya Pradesh, names of 28 candidates for Telangana and 24 candidates for Mizoram. Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan will fight from Budhni constituency, and State Ministers Narottam Mishra and Yashodhara Raje Scindia will contest from Datia and Shivpuri respectively. The list was finalized after the Central Election Committee of the party met under the presidentship of Amit Shah. Prime Minister Modi and Union Ministers Rajnath Singh, Arun Jaitley and Sushma Swaraj and other members of the Central Election Committee also attended the meeting on Thursday. And today is the last day of nominations for the second phase of elections in Chhattisgarh. Nominations, remember, began on 26th of August for the second and final phase of elections with the issue of notification. 72 constituencies of the state will go to polls in the second phase on 20th of November. 18 Naxalism-hit constituencies will go to polls in the first phase on 12th of November. The scrutiny of nominations for the second phase will be held tomorrow, and the last day of withdrawal is 5th of November. Meanwhile, the nomination process for the single phase of elections in Madhya Pradesh and Mizoram today began with the issue of notification. Voting for the 230-member Madhya Pradesh Assembly and the 40-member Mizoram Assembly will take place on 28th of November. And earlier, the full bench of Election Commission on Thursday held meetings with the various stakeholders in Raipur to review the poll preparedness for the assembly elections in Chhattisgarh. A high-level team of the Election Commission, headed by Chief Election Commissioner O.P. Rawat, first had a meeting with the representatives of political parties and gave them the necessary guidance regarding the model code of conduct. Also, monitoring of election expenditure and other important issues. They also sought suggestions from political parties for the smooth conduct of elections. And during a visit to Raipur, the Commission also held meetings with the district returning officers, superintendents of police of various districts and other senior officials to review the poll preparations. The CEC asked the election officials of the state to make optimum use of the social media as well to motivate the youth to exercise their franchise. And in a bid to unite the opposition parties against the BJP ahead of the general elections next year, TDP chief Chandrababu Naidu met Congress President Rahul Gandhi in New Delhi on Thursday. And after the meeting, Rahul Gandhi said that the opposition parties will work together to defeat the BJP and raise issues like unemployment and corruption in the Rafale fighter jet deal. And earlier in the day, Chandrababu Naidu also met NCP chief Sharad Pawar and National Conference President Farooq Abdullah. And Pawar said that the non-BJP parties will develop a common minimum program to take on the government ahead of the 2019 general elections.
We have to defend the democracy in this country. We have to defend the institutions of this country. And we have to defend the future of this country. And so we are coming together, we're going to work together, and all opposition forces are going to work together to defend India.
It is a democratic compulsion now. We have to join together to protect this country.
We'll slip into a very short break here. We'll be right back with more news. Thanks for watching. And Justices Hemant Gupta, R. Subhash Reddy, M.R. Shah and Ajay Rastogi were today sworn in as the judges of the Supreme Court, taking its total strength to 28. The swearing-in ceremony started at 10:30 a.m. in Court Number 1 of the Apex Court, and Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi administered the oath of office to the 4 judges. The President had on Thursday given his assent to the recommendation of the Supreme Court Collegium for elevating 4 Chief Justices of different courts as Apex Court judges. While Justice Gupta was the Chief Justice of the Madhya Pradesh High Court, Justice Reddy was the Gujarat High Court's Chief Justice, and Justice Shah was the Chief Justice of Patna High Court, and Justice Rastogi was the Chief Justice of the Tripura High Court. The Apex Court has a sanction strength of 31. And with the elevation of these 4 new judges, the strength has risen from 24 to 28. And on to the other top story. The Supreme Court has refused to entertain a petition challenging the ordinance on triple talaq. A 3-judge bench of the Supreme Court, headed by Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi, refused to entertain it. The petition had challenged the constitutional validity of the Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Marriage Ordinance 2018 that was promulgated on 19th of September this year. The bill was passed in the Lok Sabha in December last year, but it could not be passed in the upper house, prompting the centre to take the ordinance route. The Supreme Court has refused to entertain the appeal filed by the CBI in the Bofors case. The CBI earlier this year filed an appeal against the Delhi High Court's 2005 verdict, quashing charges against all the accused. And the CBI in its appeal had stated that further investigation was necessary in view of the reports relating to the 2017 interview of private detective Michael Hirschman, who alleged that the then Congress government had sabotaged his investigation. Big story coming in from Jammu and Kashmir, where the army staged a flag march in the Kishtwar town, where curfew was imposed after a senior BJP leader and his brother were killed by suspected terrorists on Thursday night. The district magistrate said that the situation was tense but under control. The curfew was strictly in place and additional security personnel were deployed in sensitive areas of the town. A hunt has also been launched to track down those involved in the case.
एसएसपी साहब को कहा गया है कि सिट जो है वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूट करें और इन्वेस्टिगेशन जो है करने के बाद जो है ये मैं बता पाऊंगा आपको। कर्फ्यू जो है स्ट्रिक्टली इम्पोज्ड है यहाँ टाउन के अंदर, और क्रमेशन जो है कह रहे हैं कि 2-3 बजे क्रमेशन जो है वो किया जाएगा। तो कर्फ्यू तो नाफिज रहेगा जी टाउन।
और इंटरनेट भी बंद किया गया?
इंटरनेट सर्विसेज जो हैं वो बंद की गई हैं। 144 सेक्शन जो है छात्र सब डिवीज़न में भी इम्पोज की है मैंने, और पार्डर सब डिवीज़न जो है वहाँ भी 144 इम्पोज की हुई है।
Remember, BJP State Secretary Anil Parihar and his brother Ajit were shot dead by militants when they were returning home from their shop on Thursday night. The assailants were apparently waiting for the brothers to return home and use pistols to target them. They were rushed to a hospital where the doctors declared them brought dead. The killings of Parihar brothers drew severe condemnation from all quarters. Home Minister Rajnath Singh expressed shock and pain over the killings, saying that the police will leave no stone unturned to bring the perpetrators of the crime to justice. BJP President Amit Shah said that the attack was a cowardly act that shames humanity. And in a tweet, former Chief Minister Omar Abdullah said that it was a very sad news and he offered condolences to the families of Parihar brothers.
This was a terrible incident. We have lost a great son of Mother India. We have lost the great sons of Mother India. We have lost the great leaders of Bharatiya Janata Party. Whole nation salutes the martyrdom of Sri Anil Pariharji and Sri Ajit Pariharji.
And in more news from Jammu and Kashmir, an unidentified terrorist was killed in an encounter with the security forces in Handwara area of Jammu and Kashmir's Kupwara district. Security forces launched an operation based on inputs about the presence of terrorists in Handwara area on Thursday evening. And during the search operation, the militants fired on the search party, which was retaliated by the security forces. Several arms and ammunition have also been recovered from the slain terrorists during the encounter. News from the northeast of the country, where 3 members of her family were among 5 people shot dead by suspected Alpha gunmen, while 2 others were injured at Kheroni in Assam on Thursday night. Now, a group of assailants came to the village with sophisticated weapons, and they called out 5 to 6 people from their house, and then they opened indiscriminate fire upon them before fleeing under the cover of darkness. Police suspect the gunmen belonged to the Alpha independent faction, as they were in battle fatigue. Chief Minister Sarbanand Sonowal condemned the killing of innocent people, and he assured strict action against the perpetrators. He appealed to the people to maintain peace and harmony and directed all the deputy commissioners and SPs to remain alert. Meanwhile, Union Home Minister Rajnath Singh also spoke to Chief Minister Sarbanand Sonowal, and he took stock of the situation. He expressed a deep anguish over the incident, saying that strongest possible action will be taken against the perpetrators of the heinous crime. And the Tamil Nadu government has said that it would allow people to burst firecrackers between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. on Diwali, in line with the Supreme Court's directive. A government release also urged people of the state to burst crackers with low decibel and pollution levels. Further, it asked the people to avoid bursting firecrackers near hospitals and the places of worship. The Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board would study the air quality 7 days before and after the festival in all corporation limits. Remember, on 30th of October, the state government had said that it would consult all the stakeholders regarding the Supreme Court's decision of allowing the state to pick a 2-hour slot for bursting firecrackers on Diwali. The Apex Court had modified its earlier order, fixing an 8 to 10 p.m. slot for the bursting of crackers on Diwali, saying that the time would be changed in southern states like Tamil Nadu and Puducherry, but it should not exceed the 2-hour duration. Diwali falls on 6th of November in the state. Meanwhile, Delhi's air quality remained in the very poor category today despite a slew of measures implemented ahead of Diwali. The overall air quality index of the national capital was recorded at 368, which falls in the very poor category. Now, 4 areas in Delhi recorded severe air quality, while 29 areas recorded very poor air quality. The air quality will continue to remain in the very poor category in the next 3 days as well. However, there is a halt on all construction activities involving the excavation in Delhi and other NCR districts. Civil construction has also been suspended, besides the closure of all stone crushers and hot mix plants generating dust pollution. And temperatures across Himachal Pradesh dipped as high altitudes received mild spells of snow, while others experienced rains. The Met Office has forecast snow and rain across the state due to active western disturbance till Sunday. Shimla and Kufri witnessed slight overcast. The picturesque tourist resort of Manali was at 5.8 degrees Celsius after mild rain, while the minimum temperature at Rohtang Pass was 10.5 degrees Celsius. And Kullu, Lahore and Spiti districts have also been experiencing light snowfall since early morning. Heavy snowfall was also witnessed in Piranjpal mountain last night. Mughal Road was shut due to snowfall. It is the road that connects Rajouri and Poonch district with the Kashmir Valley. And that's all in this edition of Midday News. Thanks for watching.